I don't have talent. I have tenacity. I have discipline. I have focus. And I know without any illusion where I came from and where I can go back to. Friends, grasshoppers, this is the Formless Podcast, episode 91, with Tyler the Superhuman and me, Dustin. How is it?
That's good, man. That never gets old. The friends and the grasshoppers, I love it. I love it.
I really like that too. That's my favorite. The grasshoppers thing, you know where that comes from, right? Kung Fu?
Yeah.
The television series.
Okay, the old David Carradine.
Yeah. And I don't even know, like, I really I haven't seen that show in so long that I don't know if the grasshoppers thing came actually from the show or from all of the parodies and jokes. The whole grasshopper take the pebble from my hand thing. I know for a fact that Jim Carrey did a skit on In Living Color in the 90s with the grasshopper and the pebble. He was like the student.
I don't know if I remembered that.
Oh, dude, it's hilarious.
Okay.
I'll try and find it on YouTube and publish it to our page because it is hilarious. At one point, he's like got a gun and he's like, "Give me the pebble!" You know, it's awesome. It's really funny. This was like pre movie fame for Jim Carrey. One of his I think his breakout thing.
Okay.
But I remember that, but I don't know if they actually if they actually called anybody grasshopper in the show Kung Fu. But I don't know. I just used it. I thought it was cool. I think we're all grasshoppers in some aspect. You know, like we're all students.
Yeah.
We're all trying something. You know, trying to learn, trying to get better.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Where does the connection between student and grasshopper, like what I'm just explaining that.
In the scene that I'm either imagining or I've seen as a child, the teacher calls the student a grasshopper. They're young, they're vibrant, they're jumpy, you know, they've got all this energy.
Okay.
And he's like trying to get them to focus and like, okay, grasshopper, settle down. Like focus on the pebble, you know, focus on this thing. So I think that's where it comes from. And yeah, my dad used to call me a grasshopper all the time when I was a kid. Like, he'd be goofing around.
Settle down there, grasshopper.
Yeah, if I got too rambunctious. So that's where that comes from. And my dad makes a nickname up for everything. Everybody's got a nickname. Everybody's got it's like a term of endearment.
Yeah.
For you. Like if he likes you, he'll give you a nickname.
That's cool.
Or everything has a nickname. Happy Valley's Crappy Valley. Corning, the city of Corning, is Corntown. He's got a nickname for everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So
that's funny.
Got a little sidetracked there. That's good though. What's been going on lately? Anything that you want to talk about or share? I know there's some stuff that you got coming up that you're not wanting to share yet, but I'm sure there's some things new.
Yeah, no. Just right now, I think I was telling you before we started, we're in the process of getting distribution on the film.
Yeah.
And I'll keep a little bit.
We'll
hold back a little bit on the company and everything and dates and everything.
But you're getting closer to that goal.
Yeah, we signed a distribution deal, and specifically,
it's actually signed. Like it's a signed deal.
It's a signed deal. Yeah, like I signed a contract. We found a company, and which I'll mention in the future.
Yeah.
But they looked at the movie and they said, "Hey, we think this title, this faith-based road trip comedy, will be a good fit for our library, and we'd like to partner with you." And we were like,
"Done."
Yes. Okay.
Right.
So and they were very excited about it, and they had a suggested release date for it, which that's still tentative, which would be this year. But but yeah, they want to send it to DVD and streaming services.
Right. Oh.
Yeah. So
an amateur question, if I may.
Shoot.
So with a distribution deal, does that include future releases or future movies that you may make, or is this a one and done deal?
Well, no, I mean, so this is my first rodeo, right?
Yeah.
On signing a deal like this. So this company has been around for a long, long time. They're very old, very trustworthy, very well known.
This isn't out of the back of a van.
Yeah, you know.
I got these watches.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So so the thing is like my plan is to establish a really good relationship with them, and then I mean the next I can go to future investors for future movies and be like, hey, I've already got a distribution outlet to get this movie distributed.
They're the first people you would call up and say, hey, I made the next movie and here it is, and like, what do you think?
Yeah, because now it's almost like in a way I've leveled up. I mean, I don't say that bragging. I don't say that with the vanity.
No, you've hit the next step.
I've hit the next step to where like I made a movie and we shopped it around and we're trying to find distribution. Now we found a company. We're establishing that relationship. Now it'll be that step. I won't have to go through that step again next time, really, because maybe I make another movie and I go with another distribution company. But now we're a company, Mighty Men of Valor Studios. We are now a company that's had a title get distribution.
Released and distributed.
Yeah, and so like now there's legitimacy to us in a way that we didn't have 2 years ago when we started this.
You know, that's cool. That's amazing. But like that is so relatable to so many different things. Like you made a connection.
Yes.
And a business connection.
Yeah.
But like you remember those names of those people. And 10 years from now, you'll still go, oh man, remember we signed with John and he released that movie, or Dave, or whatever. But not only that, like you have somebody you can go back to and be like, hey, remember me? We did the movie, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
got that connection.
That's awesome. And that's kind of what life's about, is making connections.
I heard this one time in film school. This one guy who was kind of like a guest instructor. And he said, there's always that saying that's, it's who you know. And he's like, that's true. It is who you know. He's like, but I flip it. He's like, who knows you?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows you?
And what do they know about you?
Yeah, and what do they know about you? So it's who you know and who knows you.
Yeah.
And so like it's that relationship. So yeah, it's been really cool, and it was a first step, and I didn't have anyone holding my hand and saying like, come on, Tyler, like this is how you get a movie distributed, distribution, which is kind of like one of those things I talked about many podcasts ago, right?
Yeah.
It's talking about mentors and mentorship, and how it's a positive thing to have a mentor and mentorship. In this situation, I didn't have anyone holding my hand and saying like, okay, Tyler, let's go over here and check.
Don't go there. You need to go over here. You need to do this thing.
Yeah. And so it was kind of like I had people, helping along the way, and but ultimately, like, it was like, okay, like I've got to figure out, is this a good deal? Like, do I want to start a relationship with this company? And now it's we have a relationship, and so we'll see how the movie does when it's released, and keep the podcast audience updated.
Yeah,
pretty exciting.
Freaking cool, man.
Yeah, it is really cool, and so that was kind of like another thing that it was another thing where I was getting ready to sign this contract for distribution for the film, and I was like, I remembered talking on the podcast and talking about, when you have a mentor, and if you have a mentor and or mentorship, are they there with you to do these things? Like, and do they have like some sort of skin in the game? Whereas it's easy to give advice from the sidelines, right? It's always easy to give advice from the back seat, like backseat drivers.
Yeah.
It's always
the
easy.
critic.
But
The
like
critic.
the critic, yeah. And so, but in this case, I didn't have any of that, but I did have people, a lot of people wanting to give advice, but they didn't have the skin in the game. Like, I'm the one that's the steward of this film and the steward of the investors' money and the story and where it goes. And like, yeah, we have other people that were given advice, which was good and good natured, and there was good intent, but some of that advice it was coming from their experience and what they would do in my position, but my position is different than their experience.
Yeah.
It might be similar, it might be the exact same, or it might be not even similar at all. But that was a lesson I really learned, and I totally double down now on what I've said on that podcast many moons ago, or I've said in the past about, your mentor may or may not be there with you when you do these things, and you've really got to, and then if they are, what's their skin in the game type thing on that.
Yeah.
And so hopefully they have skin in the game, and they're personally invested in you, that they want this decision to be made for the best of everything and everyone. But so in this instance, I didn't have that, and so there's a certain level of profound, not independence isn't the right word, but like, it's just like, I don't have anyone really that I have to say like, oh, this person made it all happen. Like, it was like, I give full credit to God. Like, God like totally got us to the point where we are, and used, this little piece of advice here from this person, and this little, this, and it's almost like all that advice didn't come from one person. One sentence, one piece of advice came from this person over here.
Like all of these little pieces came together to make a picture.
Yeah. So, so in a sense, that was kind of like the mentorship. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it was like, I've got to make this decision, and I've got no one to answer for, because I'm the one that went to all these investors and asked for money to make this movie.
Yeah. But like, ultimately, in any deal that you're doing, whether it's business or personal development or project or whatever, all the mentors in the world aren't going to make it happen for you.
Exactly.
You still have to put the work in. You still have to do the thing.
You have to do the thing.
And if you're not willing to do the thing, they're not, your mentor or the people that you're there with, they're not going to like make you do it.
Yeah.
You still have to. There's still a certain degree of, discipline and perseverance and initiative to make those things happen.
Yeah.
Training. You could be training martial arts for your entire life, but if you don't put the effort in, if you don't put the work in, if you don't put the drive and the like, hey, I'm willing to expose myself and see if I pass or fail. You're the person that has to do it.
You're the person. I mean, we're just out there in class, and I can't grab a student's fists and hold them there in the air to cover their face. Like, they've got to use their own muscles to keep their own fists in the air in front of their face.
Yeah.
That's like the...
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But
some of that stuff, it's not intentional.
No, of course
not.
And
I think it's just like an unawareness aspect to it. Like, you don't realize unless you're live sparring that you're exposed until somebody exposes that for you. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you're doing this, bang.
Yeah. And that a lot of these things you don't find out, like if you didn't walk through the door of your own initiative, like through the dojo, right?
Yeah.
Using initiative to walk through the door to show up to class every time.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like your movie distribution deal. You could spend your entire life reading articles and books and listening to people talking about how to do it. But until you do it and experience it yourself, there's still a certain degree of like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I am, with my interview that I had at my job, that I have currently.
Yeah.
They asked me a question I don't think I've ever been asked before on a job interview. They're like, "How do you learn? What's your learning style? Do you read instructions? Do you take instructions verbally?" And I said, "I learn by experience. And I can read something and understand what it means, but like I don't go, oh, that makes sense. This, put part A into part B and slot C goes here. Like that. I can read it, but I won't. It like doesn't compute until I actually grab part A and slip it into part B and slot C. Physically doing the thing. That's where I'm like, this clicks.
Mm-hmm.
I can watch somebody and kind of mimic what they do, but like I don't feel like I know it until I actually physically do that thing. And yeah. That's
a good way to put it. Yeah.
Like until you do the thing, like I don't feel like you actually experience it.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we could have read books and watched videos about making podcasts, but until we did the podcast or trained, we could watch all the YouTube videos in the world about learning how to box, but until you actually get into a boxing ring and throw punches and have punches thrown at you, you don't know what that's like.
Yep.
And no matter how many times I watch Rocky, my favorite movie.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. But
yeah, you never know. Like you've just got to get in and do it.
Yeah, you have to experience it.
Experience it. I think what there's the learning that's like people learn by reading, right?
Yeah, there's
people learn by hearing, and then people learn by doing.
Yeah,
like they got to touch it and do it. I'm one of those as well. Like,
yeah.
I can't be told what to do and then be like, okay, go do it. Like I at least need to do it with some supervision once, at least, just a hair.
Yeah.
Just that plants that little seed that says, okay, like today in class, like you taught us that combo, that four strike combo, and I was like, hey, can you watch this? Like, see what I'm doing, right? Like, but I'm doing it, but I'm also getting your instruction on like your input. Feedback.
Yeah. That is, I agree with you. I think that like immersing yourself into the thing is how I grasp stuff.
Grasp it, yeah. Like they say, like, what? There's no better training than on-the-job training. Just to jump in the water and do it.
Which can be frustrating, though, because you learn the hard way sometimes. You make those mistakes and you're like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah. No, and that's one thing. We had a lot of people on the movie telling us, and we still have a lot of people telling us like what we should do, and a lot of people's advice was, well, you need to go talk to this person. So person A, we would go talk to, me and Luke would go talk to person A and be like, what do you think we should do for distribution or something on the film? And person A would be like, oh man, well, and they'd give a few suggestions, and they'd be like, well, you need to go talk to person B.
Oh, because person B knows all about it.
Yeah, and person B, they can help you a lot more. So we go talk to person B, and they kind of give their 2 cents. And then person B would be like, well, you really need to go talk to person C. And then we were like, okay, we're just getting the runaround, right? Like, and then we would go talk to person C, and we'd hear a lot of the same stuff that person A and person B said. And then person C is like, well, you really need to go talk to person A because they need to know. And that was just a circle. It was just a circle of A says talk to B, who says talk to C, who says talk to A again. And you're just like, now we're getting the runaround. And then that was a big thing when we were like, we just got to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I just got to start picking up the phone and calling people about how to get distribution.
Yeah. So what did you do? Just call random people up and be like, hey, I'm trying to distribute a movie and I don't know how to do that. And
well, I would get these, so I went to the American film market in 2023, and which is down in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
It's a big convention where all these distributors come and they're looking to buy. That's where movies are bought and sold, and it's this big event. They have one in Europe, they have one in Santa Monica, they have one in Asian countries, they have one like a lot of them.
They're all over.
They're all over. It's a market. It's like a marketplace.
Okay.
The American film market. So you go to buy and sell stuff there. And so anyway, we met with a lot of people there, and especially if you say, I have a completed film ready to sell.
That's better than like, oh, I'm making a film next week.
Yeah. They're like, oh, let's talk. And we got a lot of no's, like not interested, a lot of no's. But we got a lot of business cards, and a couple companies, they're like, it's a faith-based road trip comedy. Like that's
something that we like.
That's our jam. That's our brand. That's something we carry, right? Like the Sci-Fi Channel doesn't air a romance movie.
Yeah, they're looking for sci-fi stuff.
They're looking for sci-fi, maybe some horror, maybe a sci-fi romance light, but it's not like they're not doing like
they're not the Hallmark channel.
The Hallmark channel. Yeah. And likewise, Hallmark's not looking for horror or sci-fi, right? So everyone's got their different brand of what they sell.
That makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah, right? And so so faith-based, well, that's a whole
nother subgenre
that is making a lot of money. And people are like, we had multiple people from these distribution companies say like, oh, you have a faith-based movie? Like they make a lot of money now. Like they're making a lot of money. And so anyways, got a lot of business cards, had a lot of meetings, had a lot of no's, had a couple of
So you
yeses.
already had a little Rolodex of people to call.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's the thing. And so I had all these business cards. I saved them. And then in the last several months, I've been using them to say, oh, who should I call? And contacted them. And that company nibbled. And then they were like, yeah, we're interested. So
can't catch any fish without fishing.
Yeah. And so I did have a somebody that I've worked with on films a lot, a friend of mine who makes a lot of movies. He stars in his own movies. If anything, he's been the model of like what I've looked at him and how he makes movies. And I'm like, man, I want to follow that
process.
Yeah. And it was finally an example for me to look at. And he's like, well, I find a script and then I get funding for it and I just star in these movies. And he's like, I hire a director. And I was like, okay, like that's the way I do it. Yeah. And so he actually recommended this company that we're going with. He recommended them and said,
oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So, but he recommended a while before I actually contacted them. And then I contacted them and I was like, oh yeah, my friend recommended them. And it was just this big, nice, happy thing. Not coincidence, but like an intersection of like, all arrows were pointing at this company.
Yeah. Very cool.
So
now that was on your goal, right? That was one of your goal lists?
Yeah, it was to get distribution. Yeah. So we got it.
You're inching closer.
And then as we're getting distribution for this film, looking down the road, future movies on what to do and future plans, and so
right on. Yeah, that's cool.
Kicking down the door of 2025. Bam!
How fast is it going already?
Month and a half.
Dude, what day is it today? The 15th. We're like already 3/4 of the way through. Or more than half. Well, it's only 28 days in February.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking for February.
We're most of the way through February now.
We're over halfway.
Yeah. How wild is that, dude?
At the end of February, we'll be 2/10 of the way, 1/5 of the way through the right. 2/10. No, 2/12.
2/12. So 1/6.
1/6.
Yeah,
yeah. That's why I went into film. I was never maths.
That's
so
awesome.
But how about you for your goals? Like what? Talk about your goals. So since we're 6-7 weeks
into our goal thing here, my goals have been. Well, this week has probably been one of the hardest weeks and I know I've said that before, hardest work week I think I've ever had. And I hesitate to say that because every time I say that, I have another hardest week ever. So don't jinx me. But no, Thursday, I felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown, man. It was crazy.
Really?
And it actually turned around and I ended up having one of the better days at work. So it was really cool. It was like the roller coaster of life was super crazy. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong. It's wild. I had technical issues. I had personal issues. I had just like craziness. And at one point, so I'm a salesman, and I have a route that I go on, and I'm very routine. Like I do a routine, and this is, I wake up at 4:00 in the morning. I get ready for work. I go to work. I go to my first stop. I go to every day I have, depending on the day, I might have 8 stops. I might have 12 stops, but I go to the first one on Monday every day. Go to the first one on Tuesday every day, same one. And it's just kind of like the process of how I do things. Well, I always check at the end of the previous day. I check the next week, make sure nothing's different, kind of line out my day, kind of figure out if I need to do anything different. Well, because we have a holiday week, it changes the schedule and it screws everything up, which is fine. It's fine. But normally that starts on the Monday before the previous week.
Okay.
So if next Monday's a holiday, the previous Monday, the schedule is going to be changed for the whole week because we're taking that day off. Those customers still need to get seen. They're just going to be seen on a different day.
Gotcha.
Well, it didn't change. We're taking this Monday off, and it hadn't changed. It didn't change. Nothing changed. Well, Thursday rolls around, and the schedule's completely different. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is throwing me all off. I'm not, like, some of these customers I already saw, some of them I haven't seen yet. Like, oh crap, so it like screwed everything up. I get that all.
Threw you off your game.
It threw me off the game, which, okay, big deal. That's life. Everything throws you off, sometimes. No big deal. Well, then the equipment that I'm using quits working, and it's black. There's a black screen of death. Like nothing's reviving this, and it's not like didn't charge my iPad. It's not working. It's charged. It's just done. Well,
panic.
Okay, yeah, like okay, well that's a crapper. So then I call my boss. Well, my boss is in a meeting. So I call her boss. Her boss is in a meeting. I called the boss in Eureka because he's a good guy. I know him. He's in a meeting. Like, what do I do now? I start calling other coworkers. Hey, have you ever had this problem? No. So I'm like, it's just downhill. An hour goes by of me trying to fix this thing. Finally, my boss gets back to me out of the meeting. She's like, hey, meet me at the office and we'll try and fix it there. Another 45 minutes, hour goes by. This time I'm 2 hours behind in a 10 to 11 hour day. I'm feeling that pressure. I got to get stuff done, so it just was like, and long story short, I didn't get that fixed. I ended up switching all the programs over to my smartphone, my work phone, which makes everything really hard to do because you're used to looking at this screen here,
the tablet size,
where you can read everything. So now everything's this big, and I've got to like expand and contrast everything so I can read stuff and actually order the right products. So that was crazy, but it ended up turning into a really good day. I ended up doing my review because we're like, well, we got to do something. So I did my yearly review, which I thought was going to be really terrible, and turned out to be really good. And yeah, I don't want to get too much into it, but it went from like, what now? Like what else could happen? How much worse can this get? To like, all right, this is an all right day. It still ended up being like a 12-hour day, But
did you keep getting paid for the hours?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because it's not like I had a doctor's appointment.
Right.
Like the company is actually pretty good about stuff like that. Like you're on the clock, you're getting paid. You need to get, you obviously have to do work. But like if you have a doctor's appointment, you go ahead, take it. You clock out and go, and then finish it when you're done. Finish your day out when you're done. So they're good about stuff like that. There's a lot of freedom as far as like I can schedule my day pretty much how I want. I just have to coordinate with my boss and with the customers. Because like if you own a store and I'm going there at 10 o'clock at night and you're not there, that's not a good call because you have to make decisions. I got to have stuff to bring you to sell, and it's always the next thing. Like, hey, I got one thing on you, now I got to send in a display, or I got to send in this new product that we have. I need to get your okay for that. So if I'm coming there and you're not there, I need to adjust my schedule. It's pretty, and that works sometimes with various degrees of success. It's
what I'm hearing. Yeah, what I'm hearing is you were like super flexible on.
You have to be, and that's really difficult for me sometimes. I'm not.
Because you're a routine, like you said.
Yeah, I'm a routine-based kind of guy.
You wake up at 4 a.m. and then you're
like, we hit the ground running, and we got things to do, and like
something interrupted your routine, and you were like,
it'll ruin my day. So, but anyway, long story short, that's been like the story of my life lately. This week, like messing up my routine and not working on stuff. So I haven't hit it as much as I've wanted to, but I have gotten to work on the goals, and it's mainly been like, oh, it's Saturday morning, and what have I done? Let's go back over this list. Oh, okay, I did some of that. I didn't do any of this. I did a lot of that, So this morning, I was able to release a bunch of shorts. Schedule some shorts on YouTube, which is something that we had been talking about, and one of my goals was to do more consistently, and I'm trying to figure out a way to do that, and not as often as I'd like, but we've gotten there, so we're getting there.
Well, it sounds like you're like it's almost like a goal you're kind of working on, which is like being flexible, without you even knowing that was on your list.
Yeah, in a roundabout way.
Like life is saying, Dustin, you need to work on this. Or I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
No, absolutely. I reflecting back on it, like after everything had kind of went by, I went from like, I'm going to end up in a mental institution. I literally thought that at one point, like, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I'm going to end up in a rubber room, to like, hey, that was all right. Excuse me. And I'm not being like overly dramatic. I'm serious. Like, I literally thought at one point, like, I'm going to lose my mind. I called my wife. I go, I'm going crazy. I'm literally losing my mind right now. And she goes, it's okay. You need to box breathe. It's something she tells Tom. It's a psychological thing, a psychology thing. Have you heard of that? Box breathing?
I think so, but tell me, what is it?
You breathe in for so many seconds, you breathe out for so many seconds, and you repeat it twice, hence box. Like, and you draw a box as you do it. So, like some people do. You're like, and it's supposed to be like you inhale for so many seconds, you exhale for the same amount of seconds, you inhale for so many seconds, you exhale for the same.
Okay.
And it's a calming technique to like calm you down. But she's like, don't laugh. You need to box breathe. You need to like just relax. It's okay. You'll get through this. But yeah, it was like literally, I was just like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. It's one of those things where like it's not one little thing, it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, that like the tablet's not working. It's what we call a push week. We have new products, and you're supposed to push those out to the customers, and then you're supposed to share that with all of your teammates and with all of the other centers in the area. Like we're in a broke down into a group, and it's like the Northern California group, which goes down to Santa Clara, Santa Ana, somewhere. It goes
So they
down to
spread
like,
out.
yeah. And we're like on this text thread, and like my phone's going off, and then I got customers calling, hey, you didn't send me this product, or this product's out. What happened? Blah, blah, blah. You know, so all this other stuff's happening. And my tablet doesn't work. And I've got, you know, stuff to do, and I've got to be places, and like it's just all of this stuff. And it was like a, not necessarily a panic attack, but it was just like this overwhelming weight of like feeling all of this stuff that you had to do. And it's funny because we were doing class today. We were working on combinations, and I suddenly put 2 and 2 together of like, you know how when you're sparring and you get hit and it ruins your combo or
Yep.
your thing, you're like, yeah. And then you think about how the fact that you got hit and you're trying to like get over that, and then you get hit again,
Yep.
and it just resets you. That's what I was dealing with. Instead of like, oh, this is a problem, and letting that problem go and move on to the next thing, I was focused on this problem, and I couldn't let go of that problem. In the meantime, I'm still getting hit with problems, and I'm just like, oh, this problem right here
I've
won't
gotta hold
get
on to
fixed.
this, yeah.
And I don't know what I could have done differently, but I know that if I would have just like, okay, that's a problem, I'll move on to, you know, what can, instead of focusing on what I could do, I focused on what I couldn't do. And it took me 72 hours to figure out that's what I was doing. And when we were in class this morning, I realized like, oh, I'm holding on to that problem instead of letting it go and worrying about something I can fix. So
That's a pretty powerful lesson.
yeah, it was a good lesson. I just wish I would have learned it 72 hours earlier. Maybe next time it happens, I'll get it figured out. But yeah, you know.
It's always frustrating when technology doesn't do what it's supposed to do. You're like, just do what you're supposed to do.
I have never wished for a solar flare or an EMP more than right then and there, because I'm a practical person, right? Like there's 2 camps. You got like the iPad, the Apple group, and you have your Microsoft group, you know, and never the 2 parties shall meet.
Right,
right. You know,
right, yeah.
those camps are, you know, usually they're pretty diehard. And whatever, I don't have a favorite. I like using Windows-based programs more, Microsoft stuff more, Android stuff more, because that's what I'm comfortable with. But like, if that suddenly dried up and went away, it wouldn't ruin my life, okay? But what bugs the crap out of me is like, Apple products should use Apple programs, not Apple products using Microsoft programs. They don't mesh in my experience. And like work has Apple products, like iPad, iPhone. No problem, whatever floats your boat, you go for it. That's the best deal you got, great. Let's use Apple products though, and Apple programs. I'm sure they have programs that we could use for this. No, we're going to use all Microsoft programs, which I'm fine, I know how to use, but for whatever reason, they don't work the same way as if you were using Microsoft programs on Microsoft devices. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And it just causes all sorts of issues. Like, it's weird to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we doing it this way?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't, like, I feel like there's some salesman somewhere was like trying to really sell iPads to the company, and we're like, oh yeah, we can make that work. And then they went back to Apple and was like, you better make this work. I promised this company this is going to work, and they are going to give us, you know, X amount of dollars. So I don't care, make it work, you know. And some engineers back there like, oh, you know, flipping out and got smoke coming out of his ears. But yeah, like they work, but they're just some convoluted in how it's done. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out my butt, but
No.
but it just doesn't seem to gel as if we were using something else. I don't know. But anyway, that's a whole side. That's a whole nother topic. But
No, you're making sense.
yeah, it's like iTunes. I remember when I had an iPod. iTunes worked great on the iPod, but as soon as I downloaded iTunes onto my Windows-based computer, I was like, "What the heck is this?" It's just like the commands and the inputs and the smoothness of it just was like not there.
Not there.
It felt
I know.
forced.
Yeah.
It felt forced. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole
I know
nother-
exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
That's a good example.
Okay.
Yeah, iTunes on a PC just doesn't
It doesn't
quite.
jive. It doesn't jive.
It doesn't even display right almost. Or I mean, can you get iTunes these days still on PC?
Oh
Probably.
yeah. Oh yeah. And you can download like Microsoft Office on your Apple computer, right?
But it's just not.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. Like we have an iPad, not a computer, and we're using computer programs on the iPad. It works, but it doesn't. It's not a smooth transition, right? Like I'm typing emails on an iPad. Excuse me. I'm doing stuff like that, and it works. It's just not the most efficient way. As if I had like a laptop, I can bang out an email real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just wonky. You know what I mean?
I do know what you
yeah.
mean. That's a good point. So that just like that threw you off too. That's
It's always a skew. It's not quite in focus. To bring it back to movie terms.
interesting.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not all. It's not like and life's not perfect. And quit boohooing. And like I feel like I'm a wuss for complaining about all that. But it's one of the. It's just like one more little thing that's like not quite gel.
Yeah.
All the time. And yeah, that's. Yeah.
Do you think that goes in with like? Do you think that you're a perfectionist? Like or maybe that's not the right.
No. I guess so. I've never thought of myself as a perfectionist because
I'm not saying you are. I'm just
but I guess I'm kind of that. I guess so. I don't know. I feel like I'm a slob.
Oh.
Like I'm not. I don't know. How do I? Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I must be. That's weird.
I used to be a perfectionist, but not anymore.
I'm working on being more flexible.
Yeah.
How about that? I just like it when things that go together. Like when it's smooth. I'm always like when we're training. You take a new technique and it's clunky and slow and awkward, and I like to smooth out all of those rough edges and make it flow. And that's the idea.
Yep.
And like I want it to flow.
That's not perfectionistic.
Yeah. And like so when we're doing something and it's like, oh, it doesn't quite work, but we're making it work, that doesn't flow. And I want it to flow.
Yep.
But I get hung up on the fact that it doesn't flow. Why is it not flowing?
Yeah.
Well, that's like, let it go. That's not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like almost that goes back to what you were saying. Like, okay, just let it go. Like,
yeah. And I like, it would work if it did this, or it would work if this was the blah, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I find myself like sometimes when we were out there in that class you were just teaching and doing the four count combo, the 4-count combo, that, and I'm working with some of the lower ranking and younger students. I find myself like trying too hard to like point out everything, and then because I'm trying to smooth it over too, like like and smooth it over and say, and it's like they'll do the combo one time and then I'll pick it apart and then I'll be like, okay, do it again, and they'll do it again and then I'll pick it apart a different way, and I'm like, man, like I just need to take a step back and maybe because I want it to be smoothed out, right?
Yeah.
I want them to be smooth, but I'm like, man, like, is it fun? You know, like
Yeah,
at that point,
yeah.
you know, or am I just being too perfectionistic? And I catch myself doing that, and I'm like,
well, I think that's
I'm just saying
a
that for
good
me.
thing,
Yeah.
though, because like you're wanting to improve and you want it to get better. I think people are different in different ways, and there has to be a certain level of push.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you don't want to push them over.
Yeah.
With it, you know.
Just enough.
Just enough, like as long as I think the big thing that matters is like as long as you're moving in the right direction and they're getting better. Like you want to get to the finish line. You want to get the ultimate goal is to make that thing happen. And you want it to go at the right speed, but you also want it to get there correctly, right? So there's a degree of like and different people, you're gonna have different paths of getting there, right? Like some people you really gotta push, and some people you won't have to push at all.
Yep.
And some people it's not so much a push, but more of like a nudge, right? And the weird thing with like martial arts, I think in particular, is there's so many different ways to do that, and there's so many different like everybody's different body type. So like one technique might work great for you, but might not be good for me.
Totally.
And sometimes you work on stuff that flows with you and works, and like bang, 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 you can knock it out. And then other times you do something like the next week you come in and you'll do it, and it's like it'll be a different technique, a different thing, and you're just like, this is awkward, this is weird, it doesn't work for me like that, you know. Yeah.
I follow. I totally agree.
So I don't know. It's funny because we had like 9 people today in class, including myself, and some people like latched onto this right away, and others kind of were a little bit slower because it was awkward. There was level changes. We're using our left, we're using our right, we're throwing kicks in there too, and some of us were off on we were on the wrong foot for that kick to work.
Me.
Yeah. But and so like it took a little bit of adjustment. Like, okay, how do I position myself so I can throw that kick? Where do I go? Where do I go and throw this punch with my offhand that I'm not used to doing this with? You know. So and that was one. You know, actually, that's something I learned from you when we were training together before we got our black belts, because you would always do like we'd go through the routine or through the combination or the set work, and you were always like, okay, now we're going to do it opposite of what we just did. So if we did it with our left hand, now we're going to do it with our right hand, and then we'd go through it like that a couple times, and then it's like, okay, let's go backwards through the system. Let's go this way through it. Let's do it, you know, every odd number. Let's do it every even one. And at first it was like a minor annoyance to me, but what I realized after the fact was like, that I'm solid now. Like I can do this in my sleep. I can do this without even thinking about it. Yep. And that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to react to that and to do that stuff without having to plan it out and think about it.
Doing it that way just drilled it into our heads.
It makes it you truly become empty if we go back to the gates.
Yeah.
It's just there's no effort. It just happens. Yeah. You have to be somewhere here soon?
Yep.
It's 11:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You want to call it? All right. Awesome. Friends, thank you very much. Not to break this up, but I'm stickler for time, and I know you have to be somewhere. So Friends, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the support. We are up to 51 subscribers as of this morning on our YouTube channel.
Which is so cool.
It's awesome. That means as soon as we figure that out, we can go live and do some live things. And I'd love to do that. That's always fun. So thank you for that. If you haven't subscribed to it, you should. Do that. We have a Facebook page called The Formless Pod. We have an Instagram page called The Formless Pod. You can reach out to us through email if you prefer at theformlesspod@gmail.com. Don't give up. Keep going. That's a big lesson I learned this week. Don't give up. Keep going.
Don't give up. Keep going. And let go of those.
Let go of those problems. Because problems are going to come and problems are going to go.
Man, see, I'm learning from that. That'll stick with me.
Awesome. Right on, man.